Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Phobos with BronzeLeagueGaming. How you doing today? I got a 1v1 here between two Terran players, a MskiDane, Dane, something Dane as the red Terran, and FaDeEvan as the blue Terran in the top left corner. Alright, now at the current moment, I don't remember what this map is called, so I'll probably just add that in annotations or something. But let's see how this turns out. Very normal stuff just happening here at the beginning. Normal mining going on. Dane, I'm just going to call him Dan, something like that. Interchangeable, I guess. Spawned here at the bottom right corner. Now this is, so far, has been a pretty good map in my opinion. It offers a lot of variable gameplay, as in it's newest to the ladder pool, but it really hasn't been explored, but it's been played on quite a bit already. So overall I'm thinking I like the map. These golds are, takeable, but not, impossible to kill either. So overall I think this is a pretty well built map. Do you have the supply depots? I guess you should bring up that production tab, huh? Bunkers going down for both players. First supply depot, both at the front wall. I wonder if these players know each other. They're doing pretty much the exact same build here. Do you have the refinery down for Evan first, though? It has already been constructed, whereas Dan's has just now started. Dan. I hope I'm not totally slaughtering that. I feel bad. Do you have these scouts moving out now? Looks like they're both going to scout kitty corner, and that is actually not where they need to be to find each other. So he's going to move right up, and actually I believe this scout is a tad, just a hair ahead of his opponent. Do have orbital commands for both players coming down, as well as the first Marine on the way out. Do you have this guy on patrol just to make sure that nothing sneaks through? Starts that supply depot. Second supply depot is up here. Orbital commands are just about finished. Do you have the scout moving towards this last base now? Of course, this one is already making its way in. Probably will get, there we go, does get shooed away by that Marine. Pretty good micro actually, spotting that before it gets shot down. Evan here may actually lose that. Yeah, that SCV's toast. There's no way he's getting up there. Sorry about that, Evan. First loss actually goes to Evan. So far Dan is in the lead ahead in the lead at this point in the game. Second refinery just dropped for both players. Dan's is a little bit farther ahead though. You just have to excuse me if my voice is a little bit raspy. I've just gotten over being sick. Smart move, putting the Marines inside the smoke area. You don't want any hidden shenanigans going on there. Since neither player is able to get much scouting information on their opponent, they're kind of building blind here. So I'm interested to see what comes out. Do you have a bunker for Evan going up as opposed to a third supply depot here at the front? Both players are sticking to Marine barracks factory here at the start. Reactor going down on Evan's barracks and a tech lab on the factory. No reactor on this barracks though for Dan, but a tech lab on the factory once again. Lets him start that blue flame research just a tad earlier. And looks like Evan is actually going to roll out with tanks instead. I'm actually, with this wall off here, those blue flame hellions are going to be fairly ineffective unless a starport gets up and we can get some kind of drop in the back here. Instead of using Marines, we see Evan just build a supply depot there so he doesn't have to commit supply count to that wall, or scouting. Excuse me. We do see the 111 coming out for Dan here. We do have that starport on the way out. Starport is on the way out for Evan though as well. So I guess it depends on who gets the jump on their opponent first. There's not been any attempt at an expansion yet, and both these mineral lines are getting actually pretty saturated. Have a supply depot down here in the back. We do have a supply engineering bay back here, which actually provides a nice little wall. and missile turrets here in the mineral line, which are going to prevent a lot of Banshee harassment if that's the plan. Do have a Viking instead of a medevac out first though, so that's really going to delay any kind of Hellion drops. Do have just standard Marines pumping out. I'll tell you what, that Viking's not going to do very well against all these Marines. Other than that though, Evan we see is rolling out with the medevac instead of the Viking. So the Viking will be fairly effective against that. But it looks like we may see some sort of drop here pretty soon. Dan does have control of the middle tower here, so he does have a reasonable amount more scouting information. Does look like the Viking is on patrol just to prevent any drops here in the back. Can't say I blame him. What the heck? It looks like we're just going on a stroll through the base. Another Viking, or a Viking on the way out for Evan now. Siege mode is on its being researched, so I imagine that is waiting to be completed. Front wall does go down. Interesting choice. Once again, he hasn't. I think he did use a sensor sweep. Did kind of grab an idea of what his opponent was grabbing, but didn't really scan any forces. Let's take a look at the units tab. 3 to 14 Marines. That could be actually the tide turner right there. We do have 6 Hellions now for Dan here, so those Marines may be a little ineffective, but it depends on how well they're used and if Dan can get those Marines to line up properly. Looks like we have some poking out here in the front of the base. If these siege up properly, this is going to be a lot of trouble. There goes that siege tank. Just everything's getting blown to smithereens here. Oh my goodness. Excellent position with that tank, is absolutely destroying the front of the base here. Do you see an elevator movement from the Marines? Those blue flames are moving into position though. Did scorch quite a few of those Marines. May force Evan to back off here, but it looks like Evan is going for it. Do have a couple of tanks. Looks like we're going to start leapfrogging here. Another medevac. It's empty though. Not sure what he's going to do. These Hellions just don't know what to attack. They need to get something. They do scorch a Marine right there. Dan brings the Marine SCVs in, forces the Viking to back out, and it looks like they take down that tank as well. We still have this tank on the low ground as well as the Marines here, but he's lost all vision of the high ground. He needs to get some sort of flying unit down here before that scan really expires. Do have this expansion moving out. Looks like Evan is going to try and deny that though. Looks like he's aware of something going on. That tank is still there. He needs to move that tank back. It is in range of that Hellion. Sorry, brain fart. And with the drop of the orbital command, we do see the supply depots go down. Those may come down and finish these Marines off, but it looks like these Marines are actually going to manage to chase this away. There goes one Marine. There goes another Marine. Those Marines are in trouble. We do have another group of forces here, but still no vision of the high ground. Whoa, too far. He's trying to move into a better position here. He has no idea what his opponent is doing. That siege mode right there is actually going to provide quite a bit of cover for these forces. Going to force them to push back quite a bit. These Hellions are actually doing a very effective job of guarding this ramp. It's going to make sure that no Marines are able to pop up there. That may, yep, there goes one Marine. And that was quite an effective push. Managed to force Dan to pull all his SCVs off the line, but actually didn't do any real economic damage, which is always the primary target. If you can slow your opponent's economy down, it lets yours snowball. So he committed quite a lot of resources to this attack, and granted, he did force his opponent down as well. We do see here in the resources tab that Evan has lost more units, but the value of those units tips in Evan's favor because the resources those units are worth fall heavily in Evan's favor. He has lost some 400, nearly 500 minerals less than his opponent Dan here. Go back to production. And it looks like Dan is on full steam here, just powering out a whole another wave. Looks like we got 4 factories on the way here. Very interesting play. Looks like he's trying to stick. He's cranking out mostly tanks and Hellions, not really using this barracks or the starport at this point. Evan here looks like we have him going for 2 racks. Maybe get some marauders. Yep, that's what it looks like. Researching that stim. Very useful upgrade for the infantry. Almost essential at this point in the game. So I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been grabbed earlier, but the timing attack for Evan was quite effective. Do have a drop here in the back of the base that is proving quite costly. That siege tank managed to actually swipe some of its own SCVs right there. And that medevac is flying away. These are just going on rampage, just torching everything they can get. And Evan managed to take a huge economic loss right there. He has lost a lot of SCVs. This is not a good sign for Evan. He needs to get some sort of mule reinforcements. He does have his natural up, and it is well saturated. But then again, so is his opponents. So far, Dan is in the economic lead. Yep, Evan. Well, what's that button? Units killed. Control R. Workers. Well, yeah. Dan has killed. Managed to double the number of workers that the workers killed. Sorry, misclick there. Dan has managed to double the amount of workers killed than his opponent has, so that is very unfortunate for Evan at this point. And taking the high ground here, this is going to make it very hard to breach. And he just kind of suicides those first couple of tanks in there. Not a good idea. Does lose, jeez, not a lot of anti-air. We have those Vikings and that's pretty much the only thing that's going to hit other air units. So if he can crank out a couple more Vikings and maybe a couple Marines, he could gain air superiority. Now that doesn't really help him unless he has some sort of Banshee something to cover it up with. Because as you know, Vikings will not attack air. Looks like Dan tried to push forward into a rather formidable siege line at this point. Looks like those Vikings are on the... Ugh. Oh, we got a standoff going on here. Got to focus down those ones with low health. There it goes. And it looks like Evan's Vikings do come out on top. So he does have slightly better range, but we do have reinforcements here. He needs to pull that back. Loses that side advantage, so his tanks are slightly less effective now. He needs to get something up here to take care of that. I would have focused down that one. This is going to be really close now. There it goes. Those those sudden surge of Marines took care of everything. That extra sight by this barracks here is going to grant him quite a bit of vision. It's almost in range right there. He's got to be very careful about pushing forward. Both players actually do. We do see Evan taking a third here. Very gutsy move, but under the circumstances he doesn't have a whole lot of choice. We do see Dan here. Evan and Dan. Oh jeez. We do see Dan here taking his third. He's already upgrading his to an orbital command, so that means this thing has been operational for a little bit of time. We do have a large siege tanks here in the front though. Ooh, that Marauder got totally toasted. Do have some pot shots going back and forth, and it looks like we got the better range for Evan here. If you can just move that tank just a hair up, he can snipe that one as well. But doesn't want to do that while a scan is going down. We do have this barrack still. It's going to eventually burn down, but it's grabbing a lot of information actually at the moment. We do have Dan planning to place a sensor tower here. Interesting decision. It could be very vulnerable pretty easily, but it's going to grab him a lot of information right here in the center of the map, which is always the hardest to control. So anything you can do to control the center of the map, the better you're going to do. Looks like we have kind of a standoff going on. Evan's doing quite a bit better at spending his money than Dan is here. He's floating about 400 minerals, whereas Dan is floating about 200, 300 now, so maybe I just spoke too soon. I would actually, well, I'm not a player who, we got, looks like a hidden batch of siege tanks moving out here. Maybe gonna pop up here and kind of destroy these rocks, or elevator over here or something, and really cause some havoc. But Evan can't afford just to keep these Vikings here in the middle. Do have a couple of Vikings on the way out, but Evan's Vikings really outnumber them. Do have a lot of tank fire going on at these rocks. Looks like we have a couple units that are deciding to suicide themselves. And very aggressive move by Dan, but it worked really rather well. There's no more anti-air, or there's no more air units for Evan's side, so these Vikings are essentially useless unless they won't try to land. Got a large force just totally took the middle here for Evan. It looks like he's steamrolling straight for the bases. You have a Thor out here as well as a couple of tanks on the way. May hold on, just do enough damage to slow everything down, just long enough. That's quite a sizable force, though. We do have tanks in the back, though. Yeah, this looks like kind of a base trade. I would put my money on Evan at this point, though. Do have the suiciding of the SCVs. There's not enough firepower here to really stop those. And it looks like Dan has decided to go full gun with his Vikings as well, try and land a couple, but they didn't all land at the same time. Very detrimental. Cut his firepower down by half. But there are enough Vikings to mop it up anyway. He did pretty much lose this expansion, though. Looks like these tanks have sieged up. These poor SCVs are doing their best to repair everything, and they loses the expansion. Not good. Very nice drop here with Marines and Marauders. Just totally cleaned up the rest of those tanks. So both players are just kind of reeling now, trying to recover from the trade they took. All of all, Dan probably came out on top because he completely wiped out this third expansion here. Whereas most of the SCVs were destroyed here, but hey, he's got 3 command centers and a heck of a lot of mules. So that's not going to slow him down too much. Whereas the loss here, that's iffy. Do you have a sizable force already being remade for Evan here? A lot of tanks still, a couple of Vikings, a lot of Vikings, and Hellions moving out. With all these Marauders coming into the mix, those Hellions are going to be far less effective, though. And with the tanks here, those Marauders are going to take those apart pretty well as well. I don't know if those were seen. It looks like they are going to go ahead and get out of there before they get scrapped by all those Marauders. Looks like we have some distance mining going here for Evan, trying to take that out, take advantage of this third while that becomes active. Looks like we have a couple roving Hellions as we see Evan kind of pushing to the back here. If he can elevate a couple units, and it looks like loses one. He's just stopped. Loses all 3 of those Hellions pretty quickly. We do have an elevator here in the main of Dan here. Not all these forces are way out of position. He's doing a lot of damage here, destroying just about everything. We do see a stim go down now that the forces are here. With the siege tank, though, these buildings are actually going to get in the way pretty quickly. And everything gets cleaned up pretty quickly, but he did manage to destroy 2 factories here, and that's seriously going to cut down on Dan's production capabilities. Do have this Hellion scouting out this expansion here in the corner. Looks like we had another split here. Dan chose to protect his main while Evan went after this third natural, forces a liftoff, and not a lot of retaliation. He's taking these tanks into siege mode. Looks like they're going to be back up for these. No, they're sieging up too. These Marauders aren't going to do a whole lot. They are extremely low health. Yeah, there goes each one shot has taken each of these out. So this guy's going to be free to land, but he's lost a lot of SCVs. The natural is mined out for both players. Looks like Evan transposed his main and put it at his refinery. Nice technique, cutting down some mining time. These tanks are way out of position. They are very vulnerable to roving band of marauders at this time, but it looks like they're on the move, and looks like they may try and take up camp right here outside of Evan's base as well. You have a roving band of Vikings going around the other side. Looks like he's going to go for a two-prong attack here. A lot of siege tanks back at home too. If Evan can get some Banshees or even some Ravens with Seeker missiles or something, these are going to be pretty much defenseless. These poor medevacs are trying to keep up with everything. Oh my goodness, ran right into that. His tanks are caught, though. They don't have anywhere to go, and it did cost him quite a bit of manpower, but all in all, he came out far on top of that. I guess he moved those tanks way too close. Evan has actually been fairly smart in planning his buildings and keeping them fairly far away from the edge here, so those tanks have to get really close to the edge. Looks like Evan is moving out to the middle here. Not very many Marines, another tank line, but these tanks are just staying in tank mode. And surprisingly enough, the DPS on tank mode is higher than it is on siege mode. So, even though they're not in siege mode, they're not providing any kind of static defense. They are very potent at the same time. Looks like this guy is finally coming back home. Not sure where he went, actually. Huh. Band of Vikings is on the way out again. There are very few Marines. Only 4 Marines in this entire... Yeah, 4 Marines in this entire group. 5 Marines, I guess. Guess I can't count. Hello. So this could be going pretty badly. If those unsiege really quickly, the DPS on them would be able to take out those tanks, or Vikings, pretty quickly. Right now, they're not doing a whole lot. A couple of tanks just got suicided into that siege line, but it looks like it was here to draw out the rest of most of the infantry here for Evan, and it worked very well, actually. Got sucked into this kind of pincer movement and got just shredded. Looks like we have a couple more Hellions on the way out. This 4th base is up for Dan. Looks like he's not calling it quits anytime soon, and he's putting up a heck of a fight, even though I would say the lead does go to Evan at this point. We do see Evan planning to take the natural here, so maintaining this high ground is going to be very, very important. Looks like he intercepts the tank just in time. Does see this one rolling through, and that one Marauder may be enough to stop it, actually. Yep. Does manage to take out a Marine, though. Some long distance mining going on here to this bank, orbital command. But while this one plants down, now these guys are going to have a much shorter trip, so this mining is going to yield a lot of money really quick. Evan is actually floating quite a bit here, so he's deciding to drop a couple more racks. Let me go back to production here. Build a couple Marauders, just keep on cranking out these basic units. They're proven to be very effective. If anything, I would say I really like the mech play from Dan, but if anything, I'd say he's overplaying that hand a little much. He doesn't have enough of his backbone, his Marines, his infantry to really stop his opponent, and the mobility is really what's killing him here. These tanks aren't meant to be, sneak around the side and stab him in the back kind of thing. Which is almost what Dan is using them for, it seems to me. Do have Dan taking a 5th, though, being very aggressive in his expansions. These rocks are still up, so he just has to keep an eye on the front here, which he is currently not doing very well, but he's clearly a better player than I am. Evan is capped out at 200, so he's got to do something at this point. He doesn't want to do something that leaves him weak enough to counterattack. Dan is about 150, so Evan is up by 200 feet. That siege line is going down, is dealing a lot of damage really fast, though. Excellent micro, though. Those stim Marauders and Marines took a lot of damage, but did quite a bit in return. Bought the time. These tanks needed to siege up, and we do see the tanks switch back to siege mode as the Vikings land, and the tanks in tank mode just tore apart those Vikings. And with that, I think Dan realized that he had been busted. He was pretty much spent. He did have a lot of minerals, but not enough production ability to recover from that. Anyway, thanks again for the game, Evan. I really appreciate the continued submissions. Anything else you want to send us, let us know. Or just send it to us, and we're happy to put it up. I'm Phobos with BronzeLeagueGaming. If you want us to cast one of your games, it doesn't necessarily have to be Starcraft, but that seems to be our staple here at BronzeLeagueGaming. Send it to BronzeLeaguePerspective@hotmail.com. Once again, that's BronzeLeaguePerspective@hotmail.com. Also, we have a Facebook. Check us out at BronzeLeague. I think it's gaming, but it may be perspective. That's terrible that I don't know. I know, but it's one of those two. So if you search up either of those on Facebook, you'll pull us up. Give us a like if you like our content. You know, like the video if you like the video. Any comments, tips, likes, everything helps us out. So be very friendly with those, please. I beg of you. This is Phobos signing out. Have a good night.